Immense pleasure to welcome in our midst Sri Anand Sharma ji, a very senior member of the House, and he will be interacting with you on the subject, the Rajya Sabha, its role and contribution to Indian polity. Sri Anand Sharma ji was elected to Rajya Sabha way back in 1984. This is his fourth term in the Rajya Sabha, and he represents the state of Himachal Pradesh. He has held very important and esteemed position in the central government as Minister of External Affairs, Information and Broadcasting, Commerce and Industry, Textile, etc. Sri Anand Sharma ji has also contributed a lot in joint committees. He has been the chairman of Committee on Personal Public Grievances, Committee on Science and Technology and Environment and Forest, and presently he is the chairman of the important Parliamentary Committee on Home Affairs. He has very closely seen the functioning of the Parliament. I now request him to kindly share his views on the subject. Secretary General Saab is also on dais, and Mr. Mukul Pandey ji, OSD, will be assisting the faculty as an officer in attendance during the session. Shri Anand Sharma Saab, welcome, sir.
What should you say? Okay. नमस्कार। राज्यसभा के सेक्रेटरी जनरल श्री देश दीपक वर्मा जी, मुकुल पांडे जी, माननीय सांसदगण, ये कार्यक्रम जैसा बताया गया नवनिर्वाचित सांसदों के लिए है, ओरिएंटेशन का, पर मैं अपने आप को सौभाग्यशाली मानता हूँ कि माननीय सदस्यों के बीच में कुछ चर्चा का अवसर है मिला। आप में से बहुत लोग अनुभवी हैं, चाहे कुछ लोग पहली बार राज्यसभा में आए हों, तो सामाजिक जीवन का और राजनीतिक कार्यकर्ताओं के रूप में आपका एक अपना अनुभव है। कई माननीय सांसद विधानसभाओं में रहे हैं, राज्यों में मंत्री रहे हैं, विपक्ष में भी रहे हैं, पक्ष में भी रहे हैं, तो एक वो अनुभव भी अपने साथ लेकर आते हैं। इसलिए ज़रूरी हो जाता है कि आज के परिप्रेक्ष्य में हम देखें कि भारत की संसद, विशेष तौर पे राज्यसभा का क्या महत्व है। मैं प्रारंभ में हिंदी में आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि शायद अधिकांश सांसद हिंदी ज़बान समझते हैं, पर मैं कुछ उन सांसदों के लिए जो दूसरे राज्यों से हैं, कुछ शब्द अंग्रेजी में भी ज़रूर कहने की चेष्टा करूँगा। हमारे देश में प्रजातंत्र का और भारत की संसद का एक बड़ा संघर्ष का इतिहास रहा है और एक प्रतिबद्धता जो भारत के राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन के नेताओं ने देश की जनता को दी थी कि आज़ाद हिंदुस्तान का स्वरूप कैसा बनेगा, प्रजातंत्र का कैसी रूपरेखा बनेगी, आम नागरिक की उसमें किस तरह से शमूलियत होगी, उसको कैसे शामिल किया जाएगा। इस विशाल देश की विविधता को मद्देनजर रखते हुए एक समावेशी प्रजातंत्र संविधान के रास्ते से उसकी रचना करना, ये परिकल्पना आज़ादी से काफ़ी पहले हो चुकी थी। आप लोगों को अवसर मिलेगा उस पर पढ़ने का। राज्यसभा ने भी अभी पिछले साल ही 250वें अपने सेशन पर विशेष पुस्तक निकाली थी, उसमें मुझे भी सौभाग्य मिला था अपना एक लेख लिखने का। पर जहाँ तक राज्यसभा की बात है, this history goes back to originally the first thought 1918 to the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, and 1919, which was not taken forward for various reasons, because there were different point of views about the pace of the struggle. And at that time, the dominant party, which was the Indian National Congress or Congress Party, but you had stalwarts as leaders. They would debate issues very openly, agree and disagree, but never forgot to respect each other despite disagreements. That is what we learn from that rich period of our history. But in 1928, there was a committee which was set up under Motilal Nehru ji. As all of you would know, he was an eminent lawyer, jurist, and that's why perhaps the committee was set up with him as chairman, which made the recommendations, which was in line with the thinking in the national movement that independent India has to be a democracy, which is inclusive, which is representative, which is liberal, where the citizens' rights are fully guaranteed and secured. Perhaps 1929 was again a decisive step forward when the declaration was made in early 1930, Jawaharlal Nehru as the president, rejecting, as they did, him and Subhash Bose, the dominion status, but they talked of Purna Azadi, total independence. And that resolution itself is, I would recommend to everyone to read how powerful it is, each word, not each sentence, and the state of affairs of our country at that time, a great country when we talk of our literature, languages, culture, which was totally unempowered, colonized and exploited, and how important the national movement leaders felt. It is an imperative to empower people in independent India. Thereafter, there were other important developments. I would not go into details, including, as some of you would know, or many of you would know, that there was even a Jhanda committee which was established, that what should be the flag of independent India. And that Jhanda committee, or the flag committee, decision was taken at the Haripura session of the Congress Party, which was chaired by Subhash Chandra Bose, who in turn appointed his friend and many years previous president, Jawaharlal Nehru, as the head of the flag committee, which made its recommendations, which finally were refined in the Constituent Assembly, and you have the Tiranga or the tricolor. But it's important perhaps to mention that the need to have the bicameral legislature was felt very strongly. It was in tune with what some other large democracies or old democracies had, but different from what United Kingdom had and what they have today, the House of Lords and the House of Commons. It'll be closer to what America, through its constitution, gave, the House of Representatives and the Senate, which is powerful. Perhaps nothing can be done without the Senate, whether it's the financial bills or any important laws. I would say that virtually in that country, the Senate has a veto. We don't have any house having a veto. But the Constituent Assembly also had a Union Constitution Committee. It had various committees. There was a Committee on Fundamental Rights, which was chaired by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. There was a committee, which I referred to just now, Union Constitution Committee. It was chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru. And the Constituent Assembly per se, as we know, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And the drafting committee, we had Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Bhimrao Ambedkar as the chair. That in itself is a very interesting story to tell how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, because the original Constituent Assembly, from where his seat from where he became a member of the Constituent Assembly, was lost because of the partition. And thereafter, one sitting member of the Congress was asked to resign because it was the wish of Mahatma Gandhi that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar should be closely associated with the entire process of not only discussing but drafting of the Indian Constitution. So this committee under Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, among many recommendations that it made, it called for a bicameral legislature, an effective Council of States, representing the diversity of India. इस देश की विविधता को देखते हुए हिमालय से लेकर कन्याकुमारी तक अगर भारत की विविधता, भाषाएं, बहुधर्मी बहुभाषी भारत और लोगों की उस समय की भी जो अपेक्षाएं थी, एक्सपेक्टेशंस थी कि आज़ादी के बाद उनको कैसा भारत में दिखेगा, उसमें उनकी आवाज़ होगी या नहीं, या उनकी उसमें पहचान एक अलग राज्य के रूप में, अलग क्षेत्र के रूप में बनेगी या नहीं बनेगी, ये सोच उसके पीछे थी। और वहीं से जन्म हुआ जिसको आज हम कहते हैं राज्यसभा। जो पहला प्रस्तावना हुई थी, काउंसिल ऑफ स्टेट्स सोच के इसको कहा गया, और इस यूनियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कमेटी में भी एक और सब कमेटी बनाई। उस सब कमेटी में डॉक्टर अंबेडकर भी थे, गोपालस्वामी अयंगर थे, जिनका बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण योगदान है भारत के संविधान को बनाने का। उनके साथ सरदार पानीकर भी थे, के मुंशी भी थे। उस कमेटी ने 21 जुलाई 1947 को एक प्रस्तावना की। 21st of July 1947, it was a subcommittee of the Union Constitution Committee which made a formal recommendation to the main committee for the establishment of the Council of States. Why? Because India was a federation, it was a union of states. And it was done at a time when there was a very intense discussion whether there should be a strong center or strong states. Initial thinking was of stronger states and a federative country. But after the partition, that thinking changed, and it was felt, given the experience and the pain of partition and the need of the country, that India should have a strong center. So federal in character, but with strong center and the spirit of national unity. And that recommendation for the Council of States was to give representation to the states. Remember, it was a difficult process this country was going through. When we were partitioned, there were 565 princely states. So first the merger, then carving out the different states, and what should be the membership? What should be the criteria? It's fascinating when you go through the Constituent Assembly debates that all these aspects were discussed. As an Indian, I feel very proud that we had such great men and women who devoted a lot of time and with great amount of scholarship, sincerity, and commitment drafted every clause of the Constitution. It is not something what we carry today with us, but some of you, I'm sure, those of our honorable colleagues who have a legal background, but many others have had the time or occasion to go through some pages of the Constituent Assembly debates. And it was felt necessary that for India to be together, the states must have a voice. Because each state had the elected representatives, which is called finally what is known as the Lok Sabha, but the House of the People. These are all simple translations of the Council of States, formerly being also called Rajya Sabha in 1954. But after the general elections, we've seen that how Rajya Sabha has played its role, how is it made a very important impact on the evolution and functioning of India's parliamentary democracy. It was felt necessary. Population was less, and the words which they used were for one member of Rajya Sabha, that will be on 2 full million people. Full means nothing less than full million. And then later on, how the additions. But the strength of the Council of States will be half of the House of the People. So that's exactly what it is. And 238 members to be elected directly by the state legislatures. But those states where you have a legislative council, the mandate was very clear. The Rajya Sabha members will only be elected by the assembly which was elected, not by the council, legislative council, even in the states having bicameral legislature. So it was where 2 chambers were there. So the thinking was very clear. Now the population has grown exponentially. The numbers remain there, 250, but 12 are nominated. And when we go through the list of nominated people, so very many eminent and distinguished scientists, scholars, artists who got an opportunity to come in and make their valuable contribution, which was the thinking in the Constitution Committee, that Rajya Sabha should be a forum of highest discussion and debate. And the framers of the Constitution also felt it necessary that a chamber where not only the states of the Union feel that each state is represented, which all of you do, including myself, but which acts as a stopper, not an obstacle for any hurried legislation. It was very clear. It is mentioned as such. If I have to refer to 1 or 2 things, this is exactly what was meant. I think I've left my specs somewhere in the car. Forget. I would like to recall the words of Gopal Swami Iyengar, who had advanced 3 reasons in support of bicameralism. A, hold dignified debates. B, delay legislation which might be the outcome of passions of the moment. Very important. And C, provide opportunity to the seasoned people who might not be in the thickest of political fray, but who might be willing to participate in the debates with the amount of learning and importance which we do not ordinarily associate with the House of People. Now, if this is read today in the other house, there would be ruckus. That who was Gopal Swami Iyengar to make this observation? But he was a great man, and he made this observation. As I mentioned, that his role is not perhaps fully appreciated, or many people don't know that throughout, from the first day until the last day, it was he who was a very firm pillar of the Constituent Assembly. Now, as I mentioned that though we have a federal character with a strong center, and each state having its distinct identity, on the Council of States in the Constituent Assembly, what Dr. Ambedkar had to say. The Council representing the units of federation, in fact also represented in a more fundamental and deeper sense the unity of our country as expressed through its many states and diversities of cultures, religions, languages and customs. In fact, the establishment of the Council of States and its functioning now, as we see in the last 5 decades, has to be in a much more broader and deeper context than is usually understood. The question therefore is that besides this part, what other role Rajya Sabha has? Or which house is more important? Truly Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha, whoever has the majority, they form the government. But there have been many prime ministers of India who were members of Rajya Sabha. But our constitution does not make any house superior or senior. Both the houses are equal. Except when it comes to budget or money bills, where the Lok Sabha clearly has exclusive jurisdiction, but the Rajya Sabha does have a role to play, that you can make amendments to the finance bill. The Lok Sabha will have to consider it again. They may reject it or accept it. So that power, limited play, remains with the Rajya Sabha when it comes to money bills. But when it comes to issues regarding the states, it's the Rajya Sabha, the Council of States, which matters. It's the creation of new states, alteration of boundaries, taking an area from one state, attaching it to another state. Nothing can be done without the Rajya Sabha or the Council of States. That is absolutely clear. And if I may quote on this, again, the chairman of the head of the Constitution Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru, he had said as Prime Minister in Lok Sabha, it's important that he said this in Lok Sabha, that neither house of the Indian Parliament was superior to the other, and each house had to perform the specific functions allotted to it by the Constitution. I would say that to call, as it is done in popular parlance, that upper house and lower house, it is not correct. You cannot call that Council of States or the Rajya Sabha is the upper house, which most of the people do, by the way. In the house also we hear it. Sometimes you try to remind very politely that no, it is not correct constitutional position. And Lok Sabha is also not the lower house. As we said that unlike United Kingdom, we are not lords. So it is both the houses are very clearly defined and placed in the main body of the Constitution. Another important thing about Rajya Sabha, the Council of States, is that this is a permanent house, like the American Senate, with the 1/3 of the members retiring every 2 years. It gives an advantage to the country. Imagine if the Lok Sabha is dissolved, country is in the election mode, and suddenly there is a national emergency. There is need for Parliament to discuss something or maybe to urgently adopt some legislation. Is the Council of States then, which is a permanent chamber, which can meet in any situation, which is always available, and whatever it decides after the general elections will be taken up by the elected House of the People, that is the Lok Sabha. In my own experience, what I have seen, that sometimes important legislation have been passed, but passed without legislative scrutiny. It has happened. I'm not saying it's happening now. It's happening, yes. It used to happen earlier also. But then what Rajya Sabha would do? If in the Lok Sabha, because the committee system, standing committees came only in the 90s, and if the Honorable Speaker in the Lok Sabha or the government of the day would decide not to refer a particular bill before it became a law as passed by the legislature or the parliament to a standing committee or a joint select committee, invariably on such occasions for important bills, including constitutional amendments, Rajya Sabha has done so. So even if the Lok Sabha passes a bill unanimously, Rajya Sabha has the powers, authority under the Constitution to refer the bill to a select committee of the House for a proper examination and scrutiny. We have seen in many cases it has helped because the bills have been improved, amendments made, and the same governments which were pushing for a particular law realized the wisdom of this legislative scrutiny and how it improved the laws. I've seen this happening in many cases. Sushil Modi ji is here. He knows more about what I'm going to refer to about the GST. It happened in the case of GST. If you see what was the original draft, it was a very difficult process, very complex process. He was associated more there, but I was associated with the other part, which was practical part, how to make the two sides agree after the disagreement over the years, so that the constitutional amendment could be passed in the Rajya Sabha. And that was quite an experience, what we were able to do, and that too very harmoniously, by building bridges of understanding and passing that constitutional amendment which led to the enactment of the GST laws. It has to be put in perspective. If Rajya Sabha had not passed the constitutional amendment then, the GST would have been delayed by a few years, at least by 3 to 4 years, roughly. It would not have happened. Same is the case with the land boundary agreement with Bangladesh, where Rajya Sabha played a critical role and brought a national consensus in play. Because if you have constitutional amendments and laws being made which divide bitterly the parliament or the legislature, it is not good. So this is where the Rajya Sabha, I feel, continues to play a very important role. And if my memory serves me right, about 45 bills which originated in Rajya Sabha were sent to the committees for examination. And the bills which, more than 20 or 21, it may be more now, which came from the Lok Sabha were again referred to the Select Committee. So 65, 66 important laws, constitutional amendments, were not allowed by this House to be rushed through. And that has not only brought about a huge improvement in the legislative process, but it has been very reassuring for the country that here is the states are represented in a Rajya Sabha or Council of States, which is keeping a sharp eye, because each law that we enact is maybe as simple as the Water Purity Act or the Air Purity Law or the Explosive Act. There is no law, none, which is less important because it impacts the citizens. Every law, whatever we make. And that we always have to bear in mind. may say that the quality of debates, because it's a smaller house, half the size, has been very rich and high. And it's a learning process for those honorable members who are serious. I remember when I came to this house as a very young member, I still consider myself young, I'm young in spirit, but I was young in age. And we had soon veterans like Lal Krishna Advaneji, Vajpayee, Somnath Chatterjee. There was a wave when they were not there in the other house. So though they were in opposition, but we used to watch very carefully how they conduct themselves, how parliamentary etiquettes were respected, how rules were observed, how respect was given even when there was very strong disagreement. So that was a very happy period. And one thing which I learned, if I may share with you, and I always tell members, and I don't make myself very popular sometimes, as long as I'm here and until I leave, I'll have the joy of being one of those members who have never gone to the well of the house, and I never will do. Because people are watching. It's maybe a moment, but people watch what the members of the Council of States are doing. This is the only window when the entire country watches. Somebody is watching Rajya Sabha channel or Lok Sabha channel, what you are saying, what you are doing. And unless and until a situation forces itself, because disruptions, my very illustrious colleagues or predecessors who had the leadership position in our parliament also, and good friends, when in opposition felt that disruption was essential. And there is a quotable quote of somebody who is a very dear friend, but we used to debate very fiercely against each other on the floor of the House when he was a minister or I was in opposition, or when I was a minister and he was a leader of the opposition, Arun Jaitley, and the second person was Sushma Swaraj. But at the same time, I would say that disruption should be a recourse taken when the space is not given to the opposition as per the rules. Because the rules give you enough opportunity. So if everybody respects the rules, what you are in as a member want to raise, ruling party members have their own limitations, but they can also raise. Individual members have their own right, as you know. The rule book is there. You don't have to ask anyone. When the parliament is in session, nobody tells you which question to put. On any important subject, on short duration discussion, calling attention, half an hour discussion, it's your right. That is where you are free. You can give those notices. And if on important issues, where people want a particular subject to be discussed or debated, members have a duty. So if those notices under the rules are given due weightage, then perhaps disruption comes down. But whatever time is lost in disruptions, my experience also shows that it is always made up. Then the House will sit late and members then cooperate. It eventually happens that the bills are passed. As former President, Shri Pranab Mukherjee always said that when Parliament meets, that's the time to discuss and debate and to legislate. That should be the priority. I know sometimes members do feel frustrated. It happens with us also. You give notice for 100 questions and not even one is balloted. For years, not even one of my question has come, and I say, what is happening? I give large number of questions, they get rolled over. Earlier there was a practice, if there was one question, unanswerable, no, my questions were very right. But what happens that a lot of questions then go to the yellow pages. That's the written reply and lost somewhere. Sometimes the media may pick up one or two if it's of interest. Every question cannot be a starred question, but every question cannot be an unstarred one also. So that's what the members do expect. And the clubbing is very important. If on a subject, 10 members have given a question, which is more or less same, but the essence is the same, then the secretariat would normally, and it used to happen a lot. It was not that it was a small group which was working together. They would have given their questions independently, but they would be clubbed together. So you get a chance, if 2 or 3 members are clubbed together, a chance to ask supplementary. The real grilling is the supplementary to the question. The minister would come prepared to give you an answer. That is prepared. Every time when the House meets, the most tense people are the directors, joint secretaries of the departments of the ministries, because they have been briefing their minister, and the proper briefing takes place, proper notes are there, question whether it's taken up or not, that's a separate issue. And after that is a supplementary. That's where the real test comes, whether a minister knows the subject or not. There have been times in our house when very senior ministers have been told by the chair, you are not prepared. I won't name the ministers. There was a time when Bhairav Singh Shekhawat ji was there, and to a very senior minister, he said, he named, आप पढ़कर नहीं आए, आपकी तैयारी नहीं है, ये सवाल को दोबारा लिया जाएगा, तैयारी करके आना. So this is also, this has happened. Sometimes it depends on the chair. But also I know in recent years, I'm not saying that it has happened only now, 267 has become the trigger but the red herring. The moment a 267 notice is there, then alarm bells ring and the Secretary General would know better. This so and so on this subject is 267. And the media is also running around, किसने notice दिया, क्या notice है, क्या विषय है. पर अब क्या आदत हो गई है जो बनी कि रूल बुक में है, एक तो उसको रोज नहीं देना चाहिए हर विषय पे, तो इससे उसका महत्व कम हो गया. अगर सोच समझ के दिया जाए फिर उसको उतनी गंभीरता से लिया भी जाना चाहिए कि अगर हमेशा बरसों 267 का नोटिस गया तो उस पे फिर वो भी एक सही नहीं रह जाता, कई बार आवश्यक हो जाता है. I would say sometimes this is the way to let the steam out. There's no harm if the rules provide. Suppose if there is a issue of grave urgency for the country and honorable members or parties have given a notice for discussion, that should be taken up. It helps in also diffusing tense situations. As I was talking about the legislative process earlier, it helps a lot. Because once you are there, in the legislative process, the moment a bill is there before the committee, it is not that the committee just sits and discusses, no. That becomes a platform for the stakeholders. If you're passing an economic law or industrial law, well, this is again about 267. But suppose if you are passing a law which concerns industry or investment, it goes to select committee. You will call all the stakeholders. You will call the views of the states. You will have a look at the law, take their response or reaction to that, and then accordingly make the amendments. If it is concerning environment, if it is concerning tribal people, if it is a law concerning farmers, once the parliamentary committee, that scrutiny process, that preempts and takes care that when the law is made, there exists a very strong, broad national consensus in support of that law. That is where it becomes important. कभी भी जिस बिल का सही माने में जांच परख होके जब भी कोई कानून बना है, तो उसके बाद उस पे कोई ज़्यादा विवाद और झगड़ा नहीं होता. I would say that this is something which should continue to happen, continue to take place. And how each one of you grows, as I've said that some of you already have very rich experience in legislatures. Some are new. And they will grow because this is a natural process. And how your thinking evolves and understanding or comprehension of the subjects, the constitution, or the functioning of democracy. I can say that it never stops evolving. What I used to think very passionately in the 80s or the early 90s changed in the first decade of this century. And what the comprehension, views or objectives as a minister, and then suddenly you move over, and the change of the governments. But there is no day when you don't learn something if you are keen observer of what's happening, what is being discussed. So life itself is a learning curve, and so is your parliamentary career. The more we learn, the more we hear the other person. Not only the spoken words, but we must listen. If we listen and learn to respect another viewpoint, disagreement, because it doesn't help afterwards, irrespective of how bitter the exchange has taken place in the Rajya Sabha on any subject between members or parties, the moment you step out in the lobby, then you are friends again, and that's the beauty. And you go to the central hall and you are having coffee or tea together. So this is the greatness, I'll say, of our parliamentary democracy and also of both the houses. We see this happening, but of Rajya Sabha also. There have been very rare occasions when I've seen members becoming bitter and not talking to each other, irrespective of the disagreement, how strong it has been. And that's how it should always be. I know that I have spoken a lot, and there are time constraints. But I would like to thank Secretary General and the Honorable Chairman for having given me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. I am always available to all our colleagues if there is, और वो सब पे है, अपने दल के लिए भी और सब दलों के लिए. कोई भी है, अगर कोई किसी विषय में स्पष्टता या क्लैरिफिकेशन की ज़रूरत है तो पूछ सकते हैं. हम भी पूछते थे, तो उसके लिए हम आपके सामने हमेशा उपलब्ध हैं. And I would like to give my very good wishes to each one of you for your successful tenure, and may each one of you make a rich contribution to Indian democracy and to the process of lawmaking. Thank you. फिर मैं लाया तो था. Thank you.
Sir, Honorable members, as desired by you and agreed by Secretary General Saab, this session on the Rajya Sabha Secretariat, an overview will be addressed by Sri Desh Deepak Verma ji, Secretary General Rajya Sabha, an IS officer of 1978 batch. Sri Desh Deepak Verma has got a very rich experience of working both in the state and the central level. He has worked as Secretary, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, and has been the chairman of UP Electricity Regulatory Commission. He is the senior-most officer of Rajya Sabha and performs the function as the parliamentary advisor to Honorable Chairman Rajya Sabha and through him to the House. An administrative head of the Secretariat of Rajya Sabha, he is overall in charge of the administrative and executive functions on behalf of and in the name of Chairman. He is being assisted by all divisional heads of the Secretariat during this session. I now request Secretary General Sir to kindly address honorable members.
What about the presentation? You are ready? Good afternoon, honorable members. To begin this session, I must tell you the joke that I shared with Anand Sharma ji, because you are not privy to that. When he was speaking about 267 and he was telling that it should be permitted, should not be permitted, etc., with the debate goes on. So I sent him a chit and I said that through the 267 notices that we receive in advance for the Secretariat, we also get to know what is going to happen in the Parliament. So that is some advantage of 267 notices. With your kind permission, I would like to give you this brief presentation, and the purpose of this is to give you an overview of the Rajya Sabha Secretariat, and maybe if you agree that we will continue, because I have the experience of the previous sessions, and many times many members want to have some more information, because this is probably the only time that you will have the opportunity to interact in one common platform with all the officers who are dealing with the matters which are connected with you, including the facilities, amenities, all the infrastructure that we have, the official structure. So if you want, we can continue. Otherwise, I'll try to be brief and try to finish this. Okay. As you are aware, the Secretariat has been provided for in the Constitution itself. So it is provided through the provision of the Constitution, and under Article 98 of the Constitution of India, the Rajya Sabha Secretariat has been provided. The recruitment and conditions of the Rajya Sabha implies that rule etc. is 1957, and then the Secretariat method of recruitment Order 2020 was issued under it, and which provides for support for conduct of business in the Rajya Sabha and support services to the members of the Rajya Sabha for discharge of their functions. So this is the broad outline of what Rajya Sabha Secretariat is mandated to do. Next. Just to give you an overview, we have the organization chart, which Secretariat is headed by Secretary General, that's obediently yours, me. Then the Secretary, then we have two additional Secretaries, out of which one is from deputation. It is required that not more than one can be from deputation. So just now we have one from the Secretariat and one from the deputation, Mr. Gandhi. Mr. Jagdish, because people should know. Additional Secretary, Mr. Jagdish, and we have another Additional Secretary, Mr. Gandhi, and he is attached to the Honorable Chairman presently. Then we have the Joint Secretaries, the Joint Secretary Coordination, Mr. Sundaryal. Then Joint Secretary Legislative and the CVO, Mr. Tripathi, अपना नाम भी बोलते जाइए. Joint Secretary and Financial Advisor, Shikha Darbari ji, she is from the Indian Revenue Service on deputation. Then Joint Secretary Question, Mr. Chaturvedi. Then we have Joint Secretary ONM Methods, Mr. Vimal Kumar. Then we have Joint Secretary COSL, Committee on Subordinate Legislations. The nomenclature is given like this, but they deal with several other things. But one of these subjects is put there just to put their nomenclature. Then we have a Joint Secretary Reporting, Nirmala Bhattji. Then we have a Joint Secretary Lardis. We have different services that I will talk about, and he is the Joint Secretary Lardis. Lardis is to do with the research, library, etc. All these kind of. So he is supposed to give that kind of support to the Chairman Rajya Sabha, to the Deputy Chairman, to me, and also provide various inputs for various programs. Joint Secretary CNP, Conference and Protocol, Mr. Tiwari, Mahesh Tiwari, he also will be looking after several things. Conference and Protocol is the section which deals with the international seminars and all, International Parliamentary Union, which you are aware of. And he deals with the Conference and Protocol, but he deals with several other things. We just put the nomenclature based on one name. Then we have a few Joint Secretaries posts vacant. One of them from our deputation, then one from the interpretation service, and one for the editorial and translation service, because we just don't have a person eligible for promotion, so that is why this is there. The staff strength is 1794, which is the regular staff, and these are the people from different services which we have in the Secretariat, and the total number is 1794. Next. This chart we are showing to prove that we are worthy of your serving you, because this being the elder house, we are trying to prove that this is, of course, the next slide. We have the 17, 11, 11 numbers, and in the next slide we are saying that in category A we have 371 persons who are graduates. Out of 373, 371 are graduates and 256 are postgraduates. So mostly it is the people in the A category, 69% people are the postgraduate, and even in group B there are 35% who are the postgraduate, and we have few PhDs also working with us. For your kind information, I want to share it with you and feel very happy about it, that the recruitment that we do for our officers, executive officers, every year about half a dozen people go into the IAS and allied services. They get selected. They appear from here and they get selected for that. That is for the quality of the officers that we have with you, and as I said, we are trying to prove that we are worthy of serving you. We have the different service. Next. We have the different services, which is one is the LAFIA, which is Legislative, Financial, Executive and Administrative Service. These are basically the services which are in contact with you, and these are the people who are behind the administration in the Secretariat. Then we have the Lardis service, which I just now mentioned, the Library, Reference, Research, Documentation and Information Services. We have the verbatim reporting services, which is do the reporting. If you see you must be watched that in the table, there is in the Parliament a table office. There is a table on which the officers are sitting and taking dictation. The requirement for taking dictation is very, very strong. In fact, we at times find it very difficult to get people. There are several posts which are vacant who can reproduce what you have spoken, at that kind of a speed. Then we have the simultaneous interpretation service. We have now, recently, we have the simultaneous interpretation in all the 22 languages. In fact, we had some languages in which the interpretation facility was not available, and I must again share it with you. This is our new initiative, that for the first time, for the interpretation services in such languages in which the interpretation was not available and we were not getting people there, so we did a new experiment. We involved the civil society. So from the civil society, we recruited some, we nominated, we did not take them on a permanent role. We selected some people through a transparent process, gave them a training, and then made them interpreter. So they come only during the session, they get trained, do the interpretation whenever is required, which is Dogri, Kashmiri, Santhali, Konkani and Sindhi. On these languages, there was no interpreter, but through this scheme, without much financial outlay, we have been able to get this scheme. And for them, it is an opportunity of lifetime when they come to the parliament and actually do the simultaneous interpretation. We have the editorial and translation service, because whatever you speak, there is an uncorrected version, then an official debate is made out of that, and then we also prepare a synopsis. So all that work is done by them. Printing and publication service, because of the confidential nature of the work that we are doing, and we do mostly through the government printing press, but some we do also through the private printers. So that work is done. Then we have the private secretaries and stenographic services for the official use and also for the honorable MPs that I will talk about later. The parliament security services, which you have seen, they are basically facilitate your participation in the parliamentary work, and also when you want to come to the house and to regulate the entry of the visitors, etc. Then drivers and dispatch rider service. Drivers, of course, normal. Dispatch riders are those which are deputed, one to distribute the duck, etc. And also this service for bringing the members when they wish to the house. Then messenger services. The messenger services are for the documents. Support service, which I think I would like to highlight this, that support services which are provided for the members are members' salaries and allowances section, which is dealt with. Again, I think you can raise your hand, Mr. Jagdish Kumar. बैठिए, हाथ उठा से देते हैं, आपका इंट्रोडक्शन हो ही गया है. Members' amenities section, again Jagdish Kumar ji, he deals with this. Then conference and protocol is Tiwari, Mr. Tiwari, he is dealing with this. Then we have, of course, an stenographer's pool, which is available for use by the members for their official work, that can be used. And then we have an IT section, hardware and software, that is dealt with by Mr. Chaturvedi. Next I come to the sections which are the house related sections and which are important for you. You will be interacting with them. One is the notice office. I will take up each one. Table office, notice office, then the table office, the legislative section, the bill office, the lobby office, the question branch and the distribution branch. These are basically the house related section. And these house related section, we have Mr. Joint Secretary, Mr. Tripathi, and we have Mr. Mukul Pandey, who is our ex-additional secretary, now working in the secretariat as officer on a special duty. He is also very experienced old hand, and we depend heavily on him for getting all kinds of information relating to the house, what has happened in the past, what is the precedent, etc. That information is obtained from him. As you aware that in 90s we started the committee system in the parliament, and we have two committees, two groups of committees, Group A and Group B. The Group A is We have firstly the standing committees of the Rajya Sabha, which are 8 in number. I am coming to that. And total number of standing committees are 24. 8 are serviced by the Rajya Sabha and 16 are serviced by the Lok Sabha. So, but as you are already aware, the members are nominated to both the committees, the Lok Sabha and the members are nominated to all these committees. Then we have some committees which are our own committees and of the Rajya Sabha. So one is the Business Advisory Committee. We have a Business Advisory Committee of Rajya Sabha. The Lok Sabha also has a committee, advisory committee, Business Advisory Committee for the Lok Sabha. There is a committee on rules, which is whenever you want to make some changes in the rules, that procedure has to be gone through, and it is the committee on rules which recommends, and then finally it is approved by the House. Then committee of privileges, this is to see whether there has been any violation or infringement of the rights of the honorable members, any privileges. So this is the committee. Then we have the General Purposes Committee. The General Purposes Committee is sort of an overarching committee, and when we want to reach a consensus on any of the point or the subject, then generally we take it to the General Purposes Committee and build a consensus, and then we refer to the concerned committee which is authorized to take those decisions. Then we have an MP LATS committee, also which you are aware, which deals with the entitlement and assignment of the MP LATS fund, these are known as Group A committee. Then we have in the Group B committee, we have the House committee. House committee is for the allotment of the houses, etc., all that activity. Yes, Jagdish Kumar is dealing with this. तो अब मुझे लग रहा है you are dealing with too many of things, no? Subordinate legislation, committee on subordination, petitions, and then the these are all committees. Then committee on government assurances, which deals with the assurances, also the fulfillment of the assurances. That work is done by them. And then papers laid on the table, co-plot. So that committee is there. We also have in this chart the number of the members for different committees. Then we have some other committees, in fact two. One is the provision of computer to members of the Rajya Sabha, which is dealt with by Mr. Chaturvedi. And we have this ethics committee. Who deals with that? Yes, Mr. Tiwari, he deals with the committee. Now I'll come to these committees. As you know, the department related parliamentary standing committees, they consideration of the demand for grants and report thereon, which were functioning during this period. Their job is also to examine the bills as and when they are referred to it by the Lok Sabha, by the Rajya Sabha, or either through standing committee or a joint committee or a select committee. So that is done by them. It also considers the annual reports, because several bodies and ministries are supposed to present their annual report and place it before the House. So this also considers the annual reports and the report which has been received from the concerned ministry. And also every committee chooses some policy issues in the beginning of their sitting to pick up some selected topics of policy matters, and they deliberate on that, come to a recommendation, and which is sent to the concerned ministry to consider about that. Next. Here we have listed all the 24 committees. Firstly, the 8 which are listed under for the Rajya Sabha. These are the Rajya Sabha committees which are there, and it also shows how many members. So there are 10 members of the Rajya Sabha. There are 21 members of the Lok Sabha to maintain 1:2 ratio, which we maintain generally in the Constitution. In various activities which the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha does jointly. And then the next one is the committees, DRPS committees, which are of the Lok Sabha, and again the ratio there is 10 and 21. The chairman of the DRPS committee of the Rajya Sabha are appointed by the Honorable Chairman in consultation with the Parliamentary Affairs Minister and different political parties, and those are members are nominated and chair is nominated. Same is done by the Lok Sabha by the Honorable Speaker. These are some of the important committees of Lok Sabha with which members of Rajya Sabha are associated, and it also says how many members. And in this one, of course, the number of the Rajya Sabha members and the number of the Lok Sabha members is generally 1:2, but in some cases it changes also. So this is the list which is provided. Some of them very important, like Public Account Committee, Public Undertaking Committee, etc. There are ad hoc committees which are select committees and the joint committees, and they are constituted by either the House, Honorable Chairman or presiding officers of both the houses in case jointly, to consider some specific issues, or sometimes even they report on bills when it is referred to them. Of course, they cease to exist after the submission of report to the houses. A joint select committee is constituted either on a motion adopted by one house and concurred it by the other, and then members of both the houses are nominated to this. While the select committee is specific to that house, and it is select committee is constituted on a motion adopted by the house and consists of members of that house only. The membership of the select and joint committee, I think you are aware, just to reiterate, that is not fixed and varies from committee to committee. Select committee has members of only that which I said. Joint committees have members of Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, again in the ratio of 2:1. And when the motion which is taken up, that motion is not complete unless you say specifically the composition and procedures relating to the functioning. So when members have to bring, they have to also suggest the names in those motions. These are basically the activities which have been taken. I would also, in the next slide, will talk about some of the issues concerning these aspects, concerning these committees, about their functioning, what has been bothering many times the members and other people concerned with the parliamentary systems, and what procedures and actions that we are taking, which I would like to share with you. A recent development which I usko chhod diya TV. The recent development has been that we used to have different security for the Lok Sabha and different security for the Rajya Sabha, and it was very strongly being felt that there is a need for a coordinated or single security system, and this was done a few months back. So we have, even though they exist separately, but there is a joint security which coordinate. This was felt much more when there was an attack on the parliament, and from that point of time, this has been agitated by several people, and this was being discussed and being considered. So finally it has taken shape. Similarly, for the television, we have, as you are aware, that for live telecast of the both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, we have Rajya Sabha TV and the Lok Sabha TV. A decision has been taken to merge the two. So we have a CEO of Sansad TV now who has taken charge. The purpose of the coordinated television is that it will of course telecast the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha separately as and when the parliament is in session. But for rest of the time, the production of the common program, because there are several times there is a duplication, or maybe a subject of importance which is being discussed in the parliament, or which is facing the parliament and even the nation. So at that point of time, those debates were being held separately. So that can be. So idea is to have a common quality production of the programs and telecast it in a joint channel, and during the session it will telecast the proceedings of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha both. So it is Sansad TV with these twin objectives, which has taken place very, very recently, in fact on 1st of March, and this is now coming into shape. 1st of March, Ramachalu, 1st of March. Then I would like to share it with you and like to talk briefly about this, that the new initiatives that have been taken. As you are aware that we have been moving very fast towards the digitization, not only the country, not only the private sector, the government, but also the parliament, and several provisions have been made for members to interact with the parliament, submit their demands, submit their notices through an e-portal. So there are provision of e-notices, that notices can be given through e-notices, and we have in fact revised our rules to consider the priority of questions being, the notices being received, so that we can give them the time priority depending on the time that they are received. We have now a secured login portal. There was a problem of hacking in one of the cases a few months back, and now we have a very secured members login portal, http://kavach.mail.gov.in. I have already talked about the simultaneous interpretation facility which has been provided for this one, and with this we have the facility for translation in all the 22 languages. But as you are aware that we have this provision that you should give the notice if you have to speak in these languages, in these 22 languages other than Hindi and English. You have to give a notice in advance, a day in advance, and then we provide for the simultaneous interpretation. Of course, many times the notice which is given is short and we have available interpretation, then we provide it immediately. But as I told that we have got now some interpreters which are not a regular employee of ours, they are only impaneled. So to get them, it takes some time. So I would request all of you that when you are doing this, please do consider whether that facility is immediately available or not. The rules which have been made by the Rajya Sabha, they have been revised in the past, but they were revised in piecemeal fashion, and therefore there was not an holistic view of the rules committee, that rules that we have, and we therefore constituted a rules review committee, and the rules review committee went into the entire process. For example, I give you an example of different committees having different quorum. So criteria of quorum in different committees is different, and therefore many times the meetings don't take place because the quorum is not complete. So to overcome all these kinds of problems, we constituted a rules review committee, and this rules review committee went into a lot of details and came out with recommendations after considering the rules of the Lok Sabha, even some of the outside democracies outside India, and after considering, they have come out with a huge set of recommendations which the Secretariat has already considered, and we have been able to arrive at some agreed sets of, and this is an overhaul. I would really recommend and request you that as and when you find time, you can go through the recommendations of the Rules Review Committee. It has been already been placed in the General Purposes Committee. The Rules Committee is the committee which is authorized to make amendments. But to build a consensus, as I said in the beginning, we refer it to the General Purposes Committee. So General Purposes Committee has already deliberated upon these recommendations and the procedure is on. We hope that sometime we will be able to put these Rules Review Committee before the House. We had recruitment rules in our several rules committee, the recruitment committee, and during the last few years, we have gone into the process, and rather than making ad hoc piecemeal amendments, we have gone through the entire process, seen all the rules which are prevalent, and then come out with the recommendations. So along with this Rules Review Committee, we constituted an anomalies committee for the employees. As you will see that we have different services of 9 services, and then there were some differences in their service conditions, etc. So we constituted Rules Review Committee for the Parliament functioning and the Anomalies Committee for the Secretariat. Those recommendations were received, it has been obtained, and it has been implemented to a huge satisfaction among the employees. So that is one which has been done. Similarly, our recruitment rules were not existent for joint secretary and above. So those were not only formulated, the recruitment rules have since been revised comprehensively to make it update and also in line with whatever is happening in the government. We have this e-office product suite in which the electronic file management system, the e-file, which has been introduced and it is already functional. Many of our files are now being disposed of through the electronic file management system. Then there is a knowledge management system and leave management system. E-leave is also functional. Those are being done through electronically. We have also now the vigilance section, which was not there for a long time. So we created the vigilance section and the e-office cell, and also the creation of merger of the security and the creation of Censor TV with the merger of RS TV and the Lok Sabha TV. So these are the new initiatives which have been taken, and with this I will conclude my presentation. And in terms of several things, including the facilities which are given to the honorable members, if you have any questions, we have the officers here, they would be able to answer your question.